to the Women's Rights Network podcast, and I have another fabulous guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, I'm the Famous Artist Birdy Rose.
And tell us a little bit about where in the world you are right now, where you were brought up.
I'm in Essex, and that is where I was brought up. I was born in Basildon, and then I was brought up in Leindon, and then we moved to Pitsea, which is kind of like the bumhole of Basildon. But when we moved to Pitsea, we moved into because when we was in Leindon, I was in a council flat, and then we moved into Pitsea and was in a council house, and I actually thought we won the lottery because I was like, oh my God, we're in a house. This is amazing. So yeah, that's me. Pretty simple.
And one of the things that you are obviously most well known for, and the clue is in your name as you introduced yourself, you're an artist. How did you first know that you had a gift for art?
Can I correct you that I'm a famous artist?
Oh, stand corrected. Famous Artist Birdy Rose.
So sorry, what was
how
the
did you
question
get to
again?
be so famous? So how did you get to be an artist? When did you realise that you had that gift?
Oh, it's so cheesy when people say I've always known, but I have always known.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been visually into things, and that's how I think. But I also think, I wonder if that comes back to the fact that I was born deaf. So I was born with rubella syndrome, and then when I started school when I was 3, so that I could learn sign language and learn to speak. So I had issues with breathing and speaking, which, as you can tell, I've not taken my asthma pump, so I'm a little bit breathy. But yeah, the learning the sign language, the way we learned it was the teachers would hold up the picture, and they would sign what that picture is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I learned the words. And then I would lip read them, and then I would mimic them,
Right.
and that's how we did it. So I think part of me thinking in pictures is where that comes from, because I learned everything from pictures. And then I think that's always, I think I was already going to be creative, but it definitely watered my blossoming into an artist, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. So are you a fluent sign language user as well as?
No way. I was used sign language. I relied on it until I was about 7, and then I had an operation to help me be able to speak, and I had to learn to speak, and then I had speech therapy, and then when I went to secondary school, I didn't want to be in the deaf class. I wanted to be in the normal class, or I don't know if you're supposed to call it normal, hearing class.
Yeah.
And I wanted to fit in, so that my desire to fit in overrode this amazing ability I had to fluently use sign language and to connect with deaf people. So I ditched the sign language. And as a result of that, I could probably hold a conversation with someone with sign language,
Mm-hmm.
and I could probably get by. But if you ask me to do sign language off the cuff, I don't know if I could. And it would probably be like a retro version of sign language, because I learned in 1992, so, or 91, whenever it was,
Sure. That shows you as well, doesn't it? The power of wanting to fit in, especially when you're a child at school. And you can imagine now how there must be so many children who just simply want to fit in and say and do what their peers are saying and doing.
Yeah, and actually, as you said that, I just thought of something else. It wasn't just the wanting to fit in, although that is compelling as a teenager. It's also, I think, I recognised that there's a bigger world outside of the deaf community, and that I would have access to more things if I integrate into the hearing world. So I do think deaf people are isolated in that way, and that there's more access, not just to opportunities, but it's talking to people, it's getting along with people day to day, and having people in your life, and just generally being open to the world. There's more of it if you are able to integrate yourself.
And I guess this is why it's also a good idea that children are exposed to lots of different positive role models and see it to be it. and that those children who are perhaps vulnerable, or simply by dint of being a young child, need those positive, safe role models, so that we can be sure that children in school have got correct safeguarding, but that they can also thrive and not end up in situations where they're made to believe things that aren't true, or being bullied, or feel like there's something different about them that makes them less than somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's a big problem with that, isn't there? And I think there always has been some sort of that there's always growing pains for children, socially as well as internally. But we have definitely thrown a firebomb into that with this gender identity nonsense, haven't we? Like, we've just obliterated the experience of childhood and being a teenager, and we've dismantled it into 1,000 little useless pieces.
And for any children with disabilities, I think there's an argument to be made that disability has been treated as less important than other protected characteristics.
Yeah, I see that all the time. I think people forget about disabilities unless, and this is not to be disparaging to anybody, but people think of disabilities as the person in the wheelchair. So unless you've got a person in front of you in a wheelchair, you don't think about disabilities. But also, we're in a culture now where everything has a label, and that label becomes your identity and your personality, and everybody wants the special label. So we're now seeing people identify as disabled, or they'll say, I'm a little bit autistic, which isn't a thing. You can't be a little bit autistic. You're either autistic or you're not, in my opinion. I know there's a spectrum within autism. But yeah, or they'll say, I'm a little bit bipolar and therefore I'm disabled. And what they've done is they've decided that they need to make a decision on who they are and package that up as a label. And that is them now for life, which is nonsense. Because when I was 16, I thought I would have all the goth makeup and wear baggy jeans forever. And I thought, no, this is it. This is me now. This is who I am forever. And it wasn't. That was who I was for about a week and a bit.
Yeah, teenage fads. Yeah. And the thing is about being goth as a teenager, that's perfectly safe. That's perfectly fine. You can buy all those black clothes and wear that makeup and have your hair as such. Or the worst that will happen is sheer embarrassment of seeing old photos.
Yeah, not only embarrassment, but I knew I was a fraud when I was a teenager as well. I knew it. I think I wrote on Twitter a little while ago about I was in school and I was listening to my CD Walkman, and there were some boys that I really wanted to impress, and they asked me what I was listening to, and I told them I was listening to Marilyn Manson, and they were like, yeah, right on, brilliant. And really, I was listening to the Elton John Lion King CD, and I didn't want anyone to know.
Oh, brilliant.
It's so embarrassing, but that's what you do as teenagers, isn't it?
It is. It completely is. You obviously went on to develop your art and your career in art. Did you do any particular studies? Did you go to art college or anything like that?
I went to college for about, well, not for very long. I think it might have been about 6 weeks.
Aye.
And I got disheartened with college because the focus was on the theory and writing about art. And I don't mind learning about art. I'm really interested. But I didn't like the processes. So instead of doing a painting, they wanted you to do all of the studies and then write about your studies and keep a notebook and a diary and all of this, which is great practice. But that's not how I function as an artist. I just do the painting and I've got to do it right there and there. Otherwise it goes. They come and go for me. And if I don't catch what I'm thinking and feeling in that moment, forget about it.
So does it appear fully formed in your mind?
Yeah, most of the time.
And you
Yeah,
just,
my fella can't get his head around that because I tell him something and I'll say, "Can you see it in your head?" And he goes, "No, I can't." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I can see it in my head. I can see everything, and sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way I see it in my head,
Mhm.
depending on what my abilities are that day, or sometimes it changes course as I'm creating it. But I have a picture. I have not just a picture. I have lots and lots of pictures in my head all the time. And I do get like those creative bursts where I have to just get a lot of them out, even if it's just a sketch. I've woken up in the night before and just done a quick sketch and then gone back to sleep.
Wow.
So
Mhm.
it's like that.
And where do you get your inspiration? And do you have any influences, artistic
Is
influence?
it cheesy if I say I am inspired by everything around me all the time? I'm stimulated by everything, and I am both blessed and cursed to be born in this generation where we've got the internet and we can be consistently, like all day long, just stimulated by stuff visually, audibly, like spiritually, everything around us is just electric. So I feel like I'm always inspired by something and motivated by something. Particularly, I have, as you know, focused on what's going on culturally
Yeah.
because I think we're in a really interesting time, but also because I think I have sort of accidentally tapped into a way of pushing back for myself, and not just for myself. I mean, it's for a higher good, but you have to say that as an artist, otherwise you're a sellout. So I'm only joking, but it is for high good. But it's also like you are primarily motivated for yourself as a human, aren't you? You're always looking out for yourself, and so to be able to get my voice out there, that was a healthy way of me expressing my own opinions and pushing back in my way on what's happening now, which I think is one of the most important things that I don't think my grandparents are. My nan was born in the middle of Second World War,
Mhm.
so she grew up with that, but she wasn't old enough to have something to push back on. So I don't think my generation definitely hasn't seen anything like this, and maybe generation before us, but getting a little bit sketchy depending where you were born.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's really important, and I'm definitely motivated because in the gender identity stuff and the trans thing, because I found that just for me personally, just talking about it on Facebook was all that was doing was making people hate me. So, and or at least I feel like that. I mean, for a little while, I had a really good on my personal Facebook page, a really good sort of feedback where people were discussing things we could disagree and all this stuff. And then obviously I got cancelled, which I know we'll get to in a minute. And what I found was just before I got cancelled was I found that I do feel like I'm expressing myself more wholly and completely as an artist than I am in writing on Facebook. I mean, even now I tweet stuff and it's great being able to tweet. I like that. And
You do
that's a
some
cool
good
thing to do.
tweeting or posting as it is now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's posting. I bet nobody calls it any of those things at the Twitter HQ. They still call it
Quite possibly
tweeting.
not. Although I don't know, they're nerdy enough to be that pedantic, I guess.
Oh, yeah, they probably are. Yeah, maybe that's worse than being an artist, is being one of those nerdy types.
What kind of art were you creating before you got cancelled?
Have you seen my paintings before? I'll send you some pictures, but there
Yeah, we
were,
can share them on the timeline.
yeah, yeah, I'll send you pictures, but they're like lighthouses and flying ships. I was really into that for a little while.
Oh,
It's very sort of dream world stuff.
okay. Hmm.
And I like that because I see art as an escape. And I used to be criticised actually for not doing political art. And my answer to that used to be that art is meant to be an escape. And then I got into doing the art about what's happening with this trans thing. and about how women are affected. I started off primarily giving humanity and a voice to the women who are being, sort of like cancelled and browbeaten by all of this publicly. And that unlocked the doors to me doing more of this stuff. But when I started it, it was an escape for me. So it might be perceived as political to others, but for me, it was an escape. It was a way of letting out my thoughts and feelings and my voice, also giving humanity and a voice to other women, but also escaping into the art.
And what prompted you, or should we say piqued you, such that you started to create that art?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about piqued, that's about what piqued me in terms of recognizing that men are not women and stuff like that. I peaked in that way long before I did the art about it. But what prompted me to do the art was there was a few things. So first of all, we was in lockdowns and I got an iPad, but I got it on like pay monthly scheme, which I just paid off this year, so I'm well happy about that. And I got an iPad and I've been wanting to do digital art for a long time because I'd already been putting art on t-shirts and merchandise, not just for myself and for my fella, but for other musicians. And I found the process very difficult because I'd draw everything by hand, do it all on paper, and then I'd have to, because we were living in our van at the time as well, we were on the road, I'd have to find somewhere to scan it and then get a digital file, buy a USB and give that to the musician who I'm selling the art to and do it all that way. And I wanted an easier, quicker way to do it. And I know that with the iPads, you can draw it on and then it is in its digital form and you can whack that on a billboard, do whatever you want with it. And so I wanted that access to make my life as an artist easier. And when I got the iPad, obviously I didn't know how to use it. I've never had an Apple product in my life. And I was like, oh no, I'm in the
Hopefully you're now converted.
Yeah, I am completely converted now. I'm in the cult. And so when I got the iPad, I wanted to learn how to draw on it. And I think, yeah, it was. The Magdalene Burns picture I did was the first one.
Okay.
So that was the first picture I ever did on the iPad. And that was me learning how to do it. And I thought I'd go for a portrait, not just because I felt compelled to draw people like Magdalene Burns and Kelly J. Keane and J.K. Rowling and everybody else that I drew, not just because of that, but because I know for me personally as an artist, portraits are my most difficult and my most dreaded thing. So I wanted to challenge myself. If I go into this new medium of doing digital art, I should start with the thing that's hardest for me and do it that way, rather than start with the thing that's easiest. When I was younger, I used to draw portraits in all different sorts of ways. And everybody said it was brilliant because I was only a kid. I was like 7 and I was drawing portraits. But as I got older, I realised, and this is just such a wanky thing to say, but as I got older, I realised I'm not as good as other people. And that played on my mind. That's another story. But so because of that, I've always challenged myself to do the thing that I find the hardest in art, if that makes sense.
Just so you just went straight in at the deep end with it.
Yeah.
So you have to just swallowed the frog and just got on with it. And the hardest thing or the worst thing first and that makes I think that shows a confidence as well in your ability to improve creative skills, to prove to yourself that you are able to do it.
Yeah, I think it was driven by motivated by excitement of discovering how to do new things as an artist as well. And also I look back at the portraits and I'm proud of all of them. But I was thinking about this yesterday. The portraits compared to the art I'm doing today digitally, there's such a big difference.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, wow, just seeing the progress in 3 years has made it so worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You can see from your website, and all links will be in the podcast description. You can see the evolution in just that short period. So everything you create now is digital?
Not everything. I still paint.
Hmm.
and I still sell paintings, and they are always going to be my favorite thing to do ever. So I love painting on canvas, and that is just my number one. The digital stuff is just such an exciting project for me because it was something that I never even imagined as a kid that I would ever do anything like that, because that wasn't available. And I really like it. It blows my mind what you can do with digital stuff, and how you can just draw it and then put it on a t-shirt or make a mug or do something with it. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. So it's really exciting. But the paintings are something that I feel it's not better, it's different. And I feel a bit more like with a painting, I put a bit more of myself in it spiritually. And I know that sounds like, artist nonsense, but it's kind of true.
And what kind of materials are you using for on the canvas? Is it oils? Is it watercolors?
Oh, well, I use acrylic on canvas, and I've always used acrylic because I find them easier, and they dry quicker, and I'm quite a quick painter. I'm really sort of, what am I like? Sort of childish with my painting, really, because I just whack it on the canvas, and I break all my brushes, and I have to buy new ones all the time, and I'm not delicate and ladylike with it at all. But what I like is the when I finish the painting, it all comes together really neat and meticulously. But yeah, the process, I'm pretty rough with it. I would like to try oils because you get that shiny effect, and
Mm.
they're all lovely. They look all, I see people on Instagram painting in oils, and there's just something really satisfying about watching it. And I'd love to do that. But I don't know if I have the patience, because I just want to move on to the next bit. I've got a strategy and a formula that I've stuck to for years with my painting. And it's like a recipe for cooking. So you do this first and that first, these sort of colours first, these sort of colours next. And that's just how I do it, and I don't deviate from it. And that, I know that sounds really weird, but that's just how I am.
No, every artist has their own style, not just the way it ends up on the canvas, but how you go about creating what ends up on the canvas. Yeah. And are you painting different topics than those that you're creating digitally?
Yeah. Yeah, painting is still an escape, and I try to stick to that principle of painting in the dream world because I really like it, and I still have a lot of those pictures in my head that need to come out as well. So I feel like I've split myself into two people almost. Does that make sense? I know that sounds really weird, but and it's not. I don't always feel like that, but as an artist, I do sometimes.
Mhm. And for the nerdy creative types out there, what software are you using when you create your digital art?
Procreate.
Okay, I've heard of that.
I don't
Um,
know if it's the best one or not. It was just the first one that came up, and I just clicked on that one and I used it, and I've learned it. And then I've been recommended other apps and stuff, and I open it, and the thought of having to learn another app just is
mm,
too much.
mm. Good. You can clearly achieve everything that you want to achieve using Procreate by the looks of
I've,
things.
yeah, I probably could. Yeah, yeah. Procreate's really good actually, and there's I've just discovered how to make my own pens and stamps and fonts on it as well, so I can create all of my own stylistic stuff. So I'm thinking of doing what other artists do, which is like sell that online so other people
Mhm.
can use it.
Oh, smart move. Yeah.
Yes, you pay like £2 or something and you get the font, and it's
Mhm.
all in the font that I've made, or you pay like, I think it's like £3 and you can get a whole package of the stamps. But it's just you can just use them yourself and then colour them in or make your own picture or do what you want with it. And I like that idea of sharing it.
I do too, and I couldn't create anything that I've managed to kind of whack together because I am not an artist. I'm not in the least bit creative in that sense, but I'm very good at finding other people's stuff and putting it together to create something. So I am always in awe of people being able to create anything from scratch. I think it's such a skill. You um, are selling a number of your designs on your website. Tell us a bit about some of those designs. You've mentioned the portraits. What else is there?
Oh, so now I do quite a lot of t-shirts mainly, don't I? And I've got so many designs. I think my most recent favorite one was I've got a red hoodie, and it zip up and it says meow on the front and it's got a cat on the back and it's reading a book that says dogs aren't cats. And I didn't realize also that that coincides with Kelly J. Keen's cat with the dog on it. So somebody pointed that out to me and I was like, I didn't know.
That's just great minds think alike.
Yeah, that must be in the atmosphere somewhere, that idea. But yeah, I really like that. And I've done a lot more sort of, there's a Save Women's Sports one that I did with the skateboarding girl on it. And I've basically tried to base a lot of my designs around the sort of t-shirts I like to wear. So I come from, obviously with my fella being a musician, I come from that sort of background, and the t-shirts that you see on those sort of scenes are sort of, a lot of the times they can be a bit out there, but the ones I liked the best were the ones that were based on sort of like old school Sailor Jerry tattoo style stuff. And there's a lot of rules to that, and I'm a bit of a sucker for rules. I quite like rules within art, but I don't like rules anywhere else. But if there's a formula and a structure, I like it, but I don't know what the rules are. I just sort of looked at the Sailor Jerry stuff and then figured it out for myself and just do my own stuff. But stuff that I wouldn't mind getting tattooed, like the No Thank You t-shirt, I would get a tattoo of that. And there's other ones I can't, for some reason my mind's gone blank on what I've done, because I'm just focused on the stuff I'm doing now, which is my tarot style art. So
beautiful.
I love it. It's my favorite stuff. And my fella said to me that I've like knocked it out of the park with these ones and I've gone all out. And there's such a different process between that and when I was doing the portrait. When I was doing the portraits, we were in the middle of being cancelled and I needed something to keep me going every day. And that is what kept me going every day. And I did a portrait every day for about 66 days or something. And that for me was, I wanted to make it to 100 days, but something happened. I can't remember exactly what threw me off. But yeah, that for me was really good. That was a big achievement. But now I'm spending maybe a week on one of these drawings and the quality difference is just massive. And that's not that I'm not proud of what I've did before. That was an amazing project. That it's just the quality difference, the thought I'm putting into it and the detail I'm putting into it is just such a difference.
I definitely recommend that people go check them out. Like I said, we'll put links in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got some funny t-shirts as well. I think I made a Bald Lives Matter one as well. But anything that I think of that I think is funny that I would wear, I'd definitely put that on a t-shirt.
And you yourself, you've got tattoos. Did you design them?
I have designed some tattoos and got them done. And what I've learned over the years is, because it's, when I was younger and I was getting tattoos, you literally just went to the nearest tattoo studio and you get your tattoo there. So I used to design my stuff up until about 5 years ago and take it in and get them to tattoo it on me. But now we have in Instagram and all these other things that show you what other tattoo artists do. So now, instead of a tattoo artist being an all-rounder and being expected to be able to do a bit of everything, they can specialize in their thing and they have their niche. So now you can find a tattoo artist that can do almost anything, and that's the thing they do. So I'm now at the point where if I get more tattoos, which I do want to, even though I'm getting old, if I get more tattoos, I will find an artist that specializes in the style or the thing that I want them to do. I'll present them with my idea, but I'll let them do their thing because I would like their take on it. And the thing is, if you give an artist the opportunity to do their own thing, they'll produce the best thing. That's the way they draw, the way they want to do it, they'll knock it out the park. If you give an artist your thing and it has to be done how you want it, they might struggle with that. And that's what I've found with tattoo artists. Like some can do everything and anything and will just do what you give them. But I would like to, as an artist, I would like to give another artist that freedom.
Interesting. I've never thought of it that way. And I do admire good tattooists. I mean,
me too.
Skill. I saw one recently and it was done in such a way that it looked like a patch, like a 3D patch.
I love those ones.
It's How do you do? I don't know if that lasts over time as your skin changes and ages, but it was so skilled.
Oh, it's
I hadn't
brilliant.
ever seen a 3D tattoo like that before. Really impressed.
Yeah, tattoo artists have come a long way just in the last decade. It's been phenomenal watching them.
But artists giving other artists freedom, I think, is a really important point because clearly that's not what's happened for you from
No.
others or for your partner. So your cancellation story is quite an interesting one because it's kind of double-headed. It's the two of you who got cancelled. Tell us about that.
Well, I got cancelled first.
Of
Like
course you did. You're a
my
woman.
yeah, my fella got cancelled last. He got cancelled because he refused to denounce me. But that took a
Mhm.
few years. My first cancellation was like, I would describe it as a soft cancellation.
Mm.
So in 2019, a, a person that we knew we were friends with, who identifies as trans, we weren't friends with her anymore. We hadn't spoken to her for a while. We saw her at a festival, or she saw us. We kept out of each other's way. After that festival, she told everyone that I'd beaten her up. Everybody, I didn't know about it till a few days later. Everybody had already decided they're not having anything to do with me anymore because of the violence that I committed on this poor little trans person.
Goodness.
And that was the cancellation. And I didn't know what cancel culture was. I didn't know what being cancelled was. I didn't know if this was even a thing.
What year
All
was
I
this?
knew, this was 2019.
Right.
And yeah, all I knew was that this person we had really helped out, introduced everyone to. So everyone that she's telling that I beat her up is our friends that we
Oh,
introduced you to. But then I later found out that she'd already been saying things like that and building up these lies about me for at least a few years beforehand. Even when she was on tour with her, she was telling people that I was nasty and all this stuff. So to me, that seemed to be like a massive personality issue with that person.
yeah.
And I thought that was an isolated incident. And
hmm
I thought this was just a terrible thing that's happened. It did affect me
Mm.
greatly. Like the psychological anguish of knowing that there's a lie about you that egregious and everybody's instantly believed it and you have no idea why.
Mhm.
People that have known you for almost a decade are just believing this person they met 6 months ago
Mm.
because of you. That was torture. And that really, really angered me. I was so angry for so long. It was unreal. Unreal. And I was fuming when I heard it, when I saw the text to say that Birdie had beaten this person up and, we can't have anything to do with her. I actually was like shouting. I was like, I was so like, this is mental. This has got to stop. And I was just so angry, just instantly. And that stayed with me for a really, really long time. And I'm still working on my anger about the injustices of it
Mm.
all because I don't think many people understand unless they've been cancelled. And I don't even think celebrities who have been cancelled online understand what this is because they've got random people just calling them names online. I don't think that's really what being cancelled is.
No.
But being cancelled is a more close to what a struggle session is and a social exile, like in the old days when they just send you out of the country. And leave you in the woods to fend for yourself. That's kind of what it's like. And yeah, so that was the first cancellation. And then the second cancellation was a year later to the day. And it was again the same people that it was the same group of people we were friends with that we hadn't been friends with anymore. So we kind of stopped being friends with these people because it felt toxic,
Yeah.
the environment we were in. So we were like, do you know what? We're going to go off, do our own thing because they're all musicians as well. We're going to go off over here, do our own thing. We need to just be in a more healthy environment. We sort of recognised that we felt like we're kind of being dragged down a little bit, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that to, try and make us sound great. That it was, when you get into an environment and you're surrounded as an artist, it's very difficult to recognize when you're surrounded in a toxic environment because you want to succeed and you want to be around other artists. But sometimes that's not the healthiest thing. And So we stepped away from those people. So a year to the day, again, somebody that used to be our friend decided to start an online campaign against me and claimed that, you know, I'm a snake and I'm this like anti-trans monster. And, you know, I've been pretending to be an all right person, and I've just been like sort of like hiding in plain sight sort of thing amongst all the artists. So this our art community has been duped basically by this literal Hitler. And he also claimed, despite the fact that I hadn't seen him for 3 years at the time, he claimed that I'd been stalking him. I've been making his life hell. I'd been sending him hateful messages because he's trans now, so he's a woman now apparently. So, you know, he claimed that I'd been making his life hell, and then a few other people piped up and claimed, oh yeah, that's not the only trans person she's done it to. She's done it to like 4 other people. She's been harassing them for years. And I was just stunned. And like I said, I didn't know what cancel culture was. I didn't know what this was about, but I did know in my gut, even the first time it happened the year before, I knew it was bigger than what everybody was telling me it is. So the year before, when our ex-friend made that lie that I beat her up, people told me, don't make a fuss, don't say anything, you know, it will settle down, let it go. And I was just like, no, hang on a minute. I've been accused of beating somebody up and everybody believes it. This now has consequences for us everywhere we go. You can't tell me not to make a fuss. But then I sort of gaslit myself, and I thought, well, you know, obviously people are right that this is going to affect my partner's reputation as well. And he's worked really hard as a musician. I don't want to ruin his career. But at the same time, I was internally fighting with myself, and I was angry because I have a right to defend myself and say I didn't bloody do this, and you lot can all fuck off, basically. You know, and I wanted to publicly do that. So we did actually put out a joint public Facebook status, but the people involved leaped on it straight away, calling us liars, interrogating her, telling us that this has all been sorted out privately. You've got no right to talk about it publicly. No one had said a word to us. No one had said a word to us. This has not been sorted out privately. What's happened was you decided that we're not allowed to talk about it. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what this was. If I knew what I knew now, I would have had a much different approach every step of the way. So when I got cancelled a year later to the day, I would have had a different approach. Instead of, like, when it happened on the day, a year later, I was absolutely devastated because I was like, look, I'm trying to get my life together after the last accusation, and now this has come out. And it was really difficult, and it got between us a little bit as well, because my fella saw it as sort of like, what have you done? And I was like, hang on a minute, I haven't done anything. You know, these bastards have been playing us up for years, and that's why we're not around them anymore. And you know, we haven't spoken to them, and they've just sprung this on us out of nowhere. They've thrown a firebomb into our lives. And so I was absolutely devastated. And it took me a long time to figure out what this is. And, you know, I don't know if a lot of people who listen to Women's Rights Network will have a feeling about this at all, but I know I've had some pushback for it. But I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and I know he's a controversial figure. And what I got from him is a learning of history, a learning a little bit of psychology and how this works and how to navigate it, and also how to put your life back together when you're going through something difficult. They're his best things. They're the best things I get from him. I don't know, like, I have opinions about everything else, but those are the things that are relevant to me. And it was really good for me to hear somebody who was a psychologist and a lecturer who was really good at speaking talk about what being cancelled is, and how to overcome difficulties and put your life together, because I've never really had that advice given to me before. And you know, I've had difficult times in my life and nobody was there for me. So it felt like suddenly there was this person with credentials who is qualified to speak about how to overcome something monumental, not just personally but politically and culturally as well. Yeah.
I
So
think that's a
sorry
good
if
point, and I'm glad
waffled
that
on a bit.
no, not at all. And I'm glad that did work for you. And I
He
think,
wasn't the only one I listened to, by the way. There's loads of
Mhm.
people I listened to, and I just went down this rabbit hole of finding other people that were talking about it. And I slowly started to put it together and go, right, that's what it is. That's what it's nothing to do. Because initially I thought I was everyone had turned against us and my fellow's career is ruined because I'm anti-trans. But no, that's nothing to do with it.
which you
That's
just put in inverted commas, by the way. You did little
yeah. So I
marks
did the
there.
bunny ears.
Anti-trans, yeah.
Yeah.
So pro
Um,
women, yeah.
I don't believe that's a thing. And I didn't at the time. I was just like, this is ludicrous. But what I didn't understand is that this is absolutely nothing to do with my opinions. It's to do with my compliance.
Mhm.
And these people that we used to be friends with, I never used to understand why they were being shitty to us before we stopped being friends with them. And now I understand they were being shitty to us because I wasn't complying. And they were starting to go down this sort of queer theory rabbit hole, which I didn't know anything about. And I was pushing back on it, even in personal conversation, without even knowing anything. I hadn't
Mhm.
even listened to Magdalene Burns yet. I hadn't even found the GC Twitter yet, or whatever it is. And so without even knowing anything, I was pushing back on ideas. Like the one that accused me of beating her up, we was on tour once and we was all at a gig, and she sort of said, oh, well, I'm really annoyed because the government are going to make it illegal for me to, sleep with someone without telling them I'm trans. And I said, well, that is wrong, isn't it? And she said, well, they're trying to call it rape or something like that. And I said, well, surely if you're going to sleep with someone, you should be honest with them. Like, you can't get into a relationship and get in bed with someone without letting them know who you are. And obviously they're going to find out anyway. And she said, no, it's my right. Nobody has a right to know I'm trans. And then I was pushing back. And
Mhm.
all of these people that later on turned against her were having a right go at me. And I was just like, whoa, hang on. And I was outnumbered. I was just like, whoa, hang on, what's going
Yeah,
on here?
yeah.
And so I just went off and got a drink. And I was just like, oh, fuck it. They're just being weird. But I didn't know how big this was. I totally underestimated and was not aware of what this is. Even when I started to watch Magdalene Burns videos and stuff like that, I thought, okay, this is a thing and it's probably going to go away. And it never did. It never has. And it's just become more of an entrenched issue than I ever thought it would. So I definitely underestimated it.
And did you find that in going down the positive rabbit hole of listening to Jordan Peterson and then
Hmm.
others in a similar vein, that you felt less isolated, that you weren't
Oh,
the only
definitely.
one, and that, of course, there were all of the women's groups out there too?
Yeah, yeah, we were in lockdowns at the time as well, and that was a difficult time for us because we'd been living on the road, so suddenly you weren't allowed to drive anywhere, do anything, and we were living in our van. So then we suddenly became homeless.
Mm.
Like when we was on the road, we didn't consider ourselves homeless because we were always gigging, we always had somewhere to go. But now we're suddenly homeless. So that was a difficult time, and it really helped me to listen to those people while I draw my pictures and my portraits,
Mhm.
because the portraits did make me feel less alone as well as listening to people and then getting the feedback and people saying, oh, this is great, well done. It definitely made me feel like, okay, there's a world out there that knows what a woman is. Great, we can
Yeah,
start there. Let's just start there. Or at least a world out there that doesn't think it's wrong to know what a woman is.
yeah.
We can start there. And that's where I started really. Like, how do I connect with people that get it?
You have also gone on to develop your own YouTube channel and your own videos. So
Yes.
literally getting your voice out there. Tell us a bit
Yeah.
about
Well, I wanted to make videos because actually, this is going to sound really bad, but I got to the point where I felt like the art wasn't even enough.
that.
So I need to do more. I need to say more. I need to do more. But we was in lockdown. So what do? I'm not going to, take to the streets. I was pretty compliant in the first lockdowns, to be fair. And that's, another thing I've learned not to trust the government about. But another thing entirely. That's another topic
That's
everybody's
another whole,
got
yeah, rabbit
different.
hole to
Yeah,
go down. Yeah.
it's another battle, in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely compliant. I was definitely scared, and I don't think it's unjustified that people were scared and compliant either. So
Mm.
I don't blame people for being that way because I was one of them. But yeah, doing YouTube videos, that was a good way of getting my voice out there. And I think it's because I'm gobby as well. And my fella I'm doing his head in, telling him about it. And he was like, just put it on YouTube. And I was like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm not a YouTube person. And then Graham Linehan asked me to chat to him about what was going on with my cancellation.
Mhm.
And so I went on his thing and I was so nervous. I was like going to the toilet every 2 minutes before I got on the show and
Mhm.
everything. I was like so worried. And then I spoke to him and I felt like that went really well. And the response I got, it did encourage me to go ahead and do YouTube. And I spoke to Graham about it and he said, absolutely, if you need any help, give me a shout and all of this. It was brilliant. And yeah, that encouraged me to go down that route. I didn't think anything of it really, other than, okay, that maybe I'll do my fella's head in a little bit less if I talk on YouTube.
And I believe there's a new project coming up, something with yourself and Louise Distras, who was on our
Oh
last
yeah,
podcast.
Terf is the new punk.
Turf is the new punk. Love it. Can you tell us anything about that yet? Or is there a...
I can't yet. I'm going to leave that to Louise.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
Is
Okay.
that
That
all
sounds
right?
very
I
exciting.
love Louise though. She's a good one.
She is. She is. And to those of you who are currently enjoying this podcast with the famous artist Birdy Rose, do also go back to the last one was with Louise Distras. You are definitely both the punks of turfdom. I think it's great.
I think it's so funny because I wrote on Twitter about a year or so ago that I wrote something like Posey Parker and Jordan Peterson are the new punks of today, and all these punks were so angry with me, and they
Yeah.
were like, "You don't know anything about punk." But my parents, like, my mum was 15 when she got pregnant with me. She was like 15, 16, and she was a punk. And I grew up in a punk household where my parents were embarrassing and punky, and my aunt still calls herself a punk and all this stuff. It's a whole thing. I know it was sort of like a flash in the teacup, the punk thing. Um, but it's so funny to me that punks, if they want to call themselves that, are so authoritarian and so bossy and so rigid. It's hilarious to wind them up with this stuff. Not, I know that you
Punk does
shouldn't
have
do things
several
to wind
different
people up.
meanings. Yeah,
Yeah,
but punk does have several different meanings, really. I mean, there is this very specific 1970s punk music style culture, but it's broader than that word.
yeah,
But I think it
yeah.
works really well for what it sounds like is going to be a really great project. So when that launches, we'll be sure to let everybody know.
Thank you.
Where can the listeners to the WRN podcast go to find you online and to buy your stuff?
Oh, well, that would be the famousartistbirdyrose.com. Nice and easy website to remember.
Love it. And you're on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, X now it's called. I am on Facebook, but I'm so disheartened with it because in December last year, I put up a video of me asking Alexa what a woman is, and that got 500,000 views. And ever since then, I got mass reported,
Oh,
and Facebook put me on a 20-day, what's it called, like a sanction or something?
they put you
I
on the
can't
naughty
remember.
step for a bit.
Yeah, and then when I got back in January, it said I was restricted until September 2023.
Ay,
So now September 2023 is gone and I'm still restricted. So I just feel like fuck Facebook. I can't be
mm,
bothered with it. And that
mm.
is bad because I've got some followers on there that don't want to go on Twitter X or anywhere else. So I still post on there, but every day that I log in on Facebook, I get a notification now that tells me I'm about to lose my page forever if people keep reporting me. And I feel like if I had a way to write back to them, what I would say is I have no control over people reporting me. They
Quite.
report everything I post.
Yeah.
So you can't put it on me. The only way I can stop people reporting me is to stop posting.
Yeah. Yet another way of cancelling and closing down people's voices. Mostly.
Yeah, so that's why I prefer Twitter, to be honest, because I know Elon Musk is a bit of a weirdo, but he has done a good thing to retain some semblance of free speech on that platform.
Yeah. Although I've just discovered this morning, and hopefully we'll be working on it soon, that the Women's Rights Network main X account is banned across the board. Shadow banned, search banned, the lot.
No way.
Yes, so we
We
will be
should
having
make a
work.
campaign and tag Elon in it.
So we will be doing something, and it may be by the time this podcast goes out. I hope it might be sorted, but I will not be holding my breath. So, and apparently we're not the only one either. I've just seen that KPSS has the same problem.
How do you find out if you're like shadow banned and stuff? I might have a look and see if I am.
There's a website you can go to check.
Okay.
It's a very long name of the website. So what I'll do is I'll put
Okay.
the details of the blurb for the podcast if any women want to check if any of their accounts have search bans and shadow bans and so on them, or if they want to see where other accounts sit, and it will tell you. But these are the tricks that get used against us, which is again why we need to use every available form of expression, don't we?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's another reason why I did the YouTube channel, because I knew that on Facebook in particular, that was where my biggest platform was at the time. My pictures were being taken down. So there is that as well.
Thank you so much for talking
Thank you.
to us, the famous artist Birdy Rose. I do encourage listeners to head over to your website, buy your beautiful merchandise, which I think one of the first ones I bought was one you mentioned earlier, the No Thank You. Particularly like
I love that.
one. I have that.
It's so good.
And we'll look forward to hearing about the new project and your future designs and artwork, and hearing more of your voice on YouTube. Keep up the good work. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women's Rights Network podcast. You can find all about the WRN over at womensrights.network. And if you would like to join us, womensrights.network/join-WRN.